In the other parts of the session, we have been explaining how is the process to develop a business project, from the identification of business needs to the project approval. In that process, as we were explaining, it's important to identify the capability gap and analyze the different options that we have in order to achieve that new capability which is needed to implement our strategy. Now we are going to focus on the development plan for a built asset. It means a business project which is based on a physical built asset. Well, I suppose that you're familiar with the project life cycle and the different stages that we can find in that cycle. We are going to explain how the initial stages in the project life cycle, which are basically the conceptualization and definition, needs to be linked with the business needs, as we explain more generically for generic business projects. In that sense, we have to look at the scope management. The scope management could be defined as the process whereby outputs, outcomes, and benefits are identified, defined, and controlled. What does it mean? That when we are conceptualizing our project, we need to understand which are the business needs and the capability gap that we are trying to cover by building this particular build asset. So, as you can see, we need to align the scope of the project with the business strategy for our organization, with the business needs that we identified in our initial analysis. Clearly, the project life cycle is much more connected with project management than with build asset management. However, it's important that we explore the connections between project management and build asset management in the built environment. The literature identify a niche in how to address the connection between project management and asset management of building and civil engineering infrastructure. And it's important to do research in that topic and learn lessons from developed countries. Maybe you remember the case of the North America road infrastructure. Well, ideally, we don't want to repeat the same mistakes for new infrastructure developments as they are happening in mainland China or other fast developing countries. So it's clear that there is a need to establish the channels for exchange of relevant information and skills between working groups in the design, delivery, operation, and maintenance stages of a construction project. Well, in a typical construction project, we can find the project management and the asset management working as independent entities. Also, the information just is one way flow. As you can say, the different stages from planning to design to construction, and then we find the weak links and different barriers which will represent gaps and shortfalls between the project management and the asset management. But also in asset management, we follow this linear process: operation, maintenance, and replacement, redevelopment. However, we don't have this flow, understanding the lesson learned and the connection between the different stages. So, actually, what we usually have in that relation is disjointed one way information flows and barriers. We need a conductive thread between all the stages and particularly between the project management and the asset management. So it's important that operation and maintenance priorities are understood from the very beginning, and they should be proactively addressed and optimized from the outset. This will bring not only economics benefits but also environmental benefits and benefits for the society as a whole. As a consequence, there is an important need to establish smooth channels for effective exchange of information and skills between all the stages of the project, and particular between the stages connected with project management, design, plan, and construction, and the stages which usually find for asset management, such as operation, maintenance, and disposal. So we need to apply the basic concept of information exchange in order to make our construction projects more effective in terms of the way we are going to manage the built asset. This is the model which represents how the relation between project management and asset management should be. As we can see, here we talk about integrated project management because between the different stages of project management, the information flow is both ways. But even more important is the feedforward and feedback that we are establishing between project management and asset management. And also, how is the communication flow between the different stages of asset management. Through this dynamic interfacing, we can achieve some synergies. Particularly important is the fact that in these two stages, planning and design, we need to think on how the project will operate and how the maintenance of the project will be. So this exchange of information is going to be basic in order to establish a good management of a built asset. So the two-way knowledge flows, which are represented in the previous figure, assume a greater significance in the single point for the concept of delivery networks or integrated supplier consortia that can address life cycle issues that look at the life cycle as a whole. In order to develop these two-way flows and a more holistic perspective of the life cycle, the technology can be very, very useful and can represent a good solution to bridge the project management and asset management. So, from this study, we can achieve two important conclusions. The first one is the need of an increased link between these two disciplines, especially to think how the design, plan, and construction could enhance the infrastructure asset performance over the life cycle. And the second one is the importance of creating the figure of infrastructure asset managers. The person taking that role need to introduce outputs from the management, operation, and maintenance of the built asset when important decisions are made in the planning, design, and construction phases. I strongly recommend you to read this research article that you can find in the written list for this week, because there you will find all the information about how the connection between project management and build asset management should evolve in the next years.